I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. If you stick with it, before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. It's the Friday show, and this Friday, we're going to do something a little different. Well, this guy is somewhat of an expert because he is an exercise physiologist, or he went through exercise physiology in college, kept himself in shape, and then all hell broke loose. So, folks, he's a longtime listener of the show. Bringing this guy on because I want to tell more stories, right? Instead of just having experts say the same thing week in and week out, I want to start getting more stories like we did on the Saturday show back when that was a show. And this guy is one of those, and I'm talking about Mr. Rick Saxinger. How you doing, man?
How you doing, buddy?
Rick, it's a pleasure to meet you. We've spoken before, right?
Yes, we have, and we met at KETO in Austin.
Yeah. Was that the last? Because it all like melds into, it was the last one, right, where we met.
Yeah. The one that got canceled and then rescheduled.
Yeah. And then we went to that. Did you go back this year? They rebranded it something else. Did you go back and check it out?
No, we actually, the year before, we went to Low Carb Denver.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad that those events are going on, and they're all, as you know, you show up and you kind of see the same people. It's kind of what I was saying about this Friday show, same doctors saying the same things over and over and over. And it's like, well, I want to hear real stories. I want to hear what's happening out there. So many people used to get so much out of that Saturday show. And you would say, well, Vin, why did you stop the Saturday show? It was a simple reason. We were doing too many podcasts. I was hearing over and over again, hey, man, you should have so-and-so on. I did have so-and-so on a few weeks ago. And then they go, oh, yeah, I can't keep up with 5 podcasts a week, right? Even my buddy Adam Carolla has dropped to like 3 or 4 shows a week. He doesn't do 5 a week. It's just a dizzying amount of shows to do, and people can't keep up. So we dropped to 3, and one of the things we had to drop was the Saturday show. And I miss it. I miss talking to you guys. I miss the success stories because people get so much out of it. Now, Rick, you're not just a normal Joe on the street, right? You have some education behind you. So brag about yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are.
Well, actually, currently, the last 31 years, I actually sell wine for a living. But when I was young, I was actually I always joke because my license at 16, I was 5'3" and 114, 114.116. And for when I was 18, at Christmas, I asked for a Joe Weider set, which I know how much you know him and or know of him. And that's when I started lifting and getting into health and fitness, and I had a passion for it. And I wasn't expected to go to college, but I ended up going. I went to Eastern Illinois. I have an undergrad in finance and decided to go for my graduate degree in exercise physiology. Not as great as Tulane, but Eastern Illinois is not bad. And had a passion for it, but then back then, 1990, I graduated, and there weren't jobs. I could have moved to maybe Central Illinois or Texas or Florida, but I decided to stay in the Chicagoland area, and it didn't happen. So I fell into the wine business. However, I always had a passion for health and fitness, and just was always looking for information and realizing too, as you know, Vinny, is everything they taught us in college was wrong on the nutrition aspects.
Yeah, it's funny. We went down that same road of exercise physiology, and I remember, it's weird because they started asking me at Tulane. they brought me in and said, "Would you like? We'll help. Would you like to take the SAT or the what is it LSATs to become a lawyer?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to be a lawyer." And they were like, "But you have the grades." And you just got a degree in something that does not offer you a job. So when you say in 1990, I was hearing the same stuff in 1983. It's like you just chose, you went through, and I was sitting there going, well, why didn't you guys tell me something 3 years ago? Now you're telling me I chose something. You didn't mind me busting my head on a football field to get this degree that I'm getting. And now you're telling me there's no jobs available for that. But I was already working as an undergrad in the weight room at Tulane, right? I was the assistant strength coach for the very guys I played football with. They put me in charge of dry land with swimmers. I was in charge of the tennis team. I was in charge of strength and conditioning for people that did not want to be conditioned. The basketball team, if I could just get them to stop smoking marijuana long enough to come on in, um, you know, but they weren't serious about it. But I thought my move would be get on with the Saints because I was in New Orleans, or my coach, the head coach, the head strength coach, who thought I was really great at what I did, he he was calling other colleges and going, "Hey, I got this guy, and if anyone bugs out, I got your guy right here. Just know that." But I didn't think any of that was going to happen. I was just, well, maybe I can become like the third guy in line at the Saints, and then maybe just like you, become a waiter at night or something just to supplement the fact that they won't pay me a lot until I can prove my. I had all kinds of weird thoughts of what to do. And that's when Newman School called and said, "Hey, we need a strength and conditioning coach." And I told him, "Well, I'm already selling real estate." I went and got a real estate's
Oh,
license
wow.
because I didn't know what else to do. It's like, well, maybe I could sell real estate. I don't know. And I was not excited about real estate at all. I was working at Tulane. I was dressing up with a jacket and tie during the day and showing houses. And it was just an archaic time. And by the way, I was still in college. I was still getting my degree,
Wow.
right? And then Newman School comes along right when I graduate, and they were like, "Look, Fred Roll says that you're the best in the business. Would you just come over, give us 3 months in the summer? Just give us 3 months, and we'll find someone else." And that 3 months turned into 4 or 5 years,
Oh, wow.
right? And during that time, I'd already started my little personal training business. So, Rick, I had 5 things going on. Real estate, I would throw shorts on and go train someone, and then go back and do this and do that and go back to Newman. I was all over the page. But you get that, right? You got out of college and you have this fancy degree that really makes you the most overqualified PE teacher on the planet. Would you agree?
Yeah, I was actually, my concentration was in cardiac rehab. So in Illinois, it wasn't big at that time. It would be more like the retirement states or Texas and all that. And yeah, it was hard and fortunate that I was at a bartender in a resort, and my manager liked me and just moved me up. And next thing you know, I'm at another resort running the beverage department. So totally didn't do what I was planning to do, but
Yeah. Yeah. So being a beverage guy and getting into the wine business, does that mean that you have to sample all the time? How does that work?
well, now being on the sales side, so I work for a distributorship. Um, it's in sales. Everyone thinks I have this glamorous job, but it's still sales, and it's what have you done for me lately, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of cool where the I still remember my first week of selling wine, and someone spoke and just said he was at doing a golf outing, and he goes, "Yeah," and part of my foursome was this guy had a Morton Salt hat on. Because can you imagine selling salt for a living? We
Yeah.
sell freaking wine. That's pretty cool. So it was a cool thing. I became totally into it, totally wine geek. I'm a food geek, and it goes with that. And the thing is, yeah, when nowadays too, you definitely have to go out and sample with your customers and go from there. And of course, then wine's always open at my house.
Yeah, there's a guy, he does a lot of consults with me, and he's out in Southern California on a vineyard. And he he can't understand why he can never get into ketosis. He goes, I do everything perfectly except for the wine. And he's doing a bottle a day, but he owns a vineyard and he's entertaining and doing all this different stuff. And he goes, yeah, if I had to guess, I'm going north of a bottle every day. That's a lot of sugar, right? That's a lot to try to overcome. But that's where he is. That's what he's doing. And it's like, well, can you fake it a little bit or just get it down to where you think it's maybe 2 glasses a day versus five? You
I
know,
mean, it depends on the wine and the residual sugar, and if you can find out on that, because you can get low sugar in a sense of because that's the hard thing. I know you and Anna were talking about, especially when she's in Santa Barbara, that you don't see it. That's a problem. A wine doesn't have a wine label or a nutrition label, and you don't. If it has high acid, it covers up the sugar, so
right.
you don't realize how much sugar you might be taking. But there are wines out there that are lower sugars. When I'm going through, I've been doing NSNG since 2015, um, and I would try to do I would do Melodee, and I would do the lowest sugar possible. And when we drink wine, try to do the lowest wine possible. Where if we had a bottle, that whole bottle would be about 25 grams of sugar, which would be about 5 grams per glass. So I mean, that's the hard part though.
Yeah, it truly is. I try to stay away from it altogether because there, for me, there is no winning. If I want to stay in ketosis, booze is just not, people know I famously have a scotch every now and again. And I used to try to have a scotch every weekend. I'm not even sure it's not even that anymore because it's like, what am I doing? If I'm down to that, then kind of what am I doing? It's not really something
Yeah.
I want to do. So yeah, that's where that is. You you started keeping yourself pretty healthy. Was that around 2015? Is that when you said, "Hey, I got
Well,
give us some stats around your
I,
weight, your height, your age."
I
Go.
always thought I was healthy. I did go through some issues where I was getting heavier. I was trying to be healthy and doing all the wrong things, as in trying to do the low fat, high carb, and then was fortunate enough where um, actually just started going back where somebody was on a radio show and he actually had a book called Eat Bacon, Don't Jog. And it was all talking about the fat and that he was a cyclist, and I heard him on Jonathan Brandmeier, and which is a friend of Adam Carolla's, and so it was interesting. And I'm like, oh, I remember when I used to get into coconut oil, and I got away from it, and then then Melodee goes, hey, have you heard about fat in your coffee? And then all of a sudden she goes, hey, this guy on Adam Carolla, I think you like him. Vinnie Tortorich is kind of going with the way we're thinking. And then first I started listening to you then in 15. And I actually got mad because I'm like, uh, everything they taught was totally opposite, and learning how fat isn't important and protein, but how carbs kind of and sugars, especially sugars, messed us all up. And so 15 started doing NSNG, and things were going good, and thought it was pretty healthy. And then lockdown happened, and it was actually the weekend of my birthday, and everybody was apologizing that, oh, sorry that everything's closed, um, that you won't get to enjoy it. I'm like, I was just going to have a good ribeye and maybe a bottle of wine for my birthday, and I'd be fine. And then that weekend, Melody and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? With this whole COVID stuff, maybe we should just this is our opportunity because we were essential, but I couldn't go out, which I still think it's a joke that selling wine and spirits and that was essential, but I couldn't go to church or
Yeah, 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 look,
do a job.
we could do a whole show on that.
Yeah,
I try to stay because when you start getting into that, it gets political really fast, and I try to stay.
yeah, and I don't mean to get political, but it was an opportunity for us to go. You know what? I won't have any wine open because the thing is, I have wine open all the time, and because we couldn't go see accounts. I'm like, this is our opportunity. So stop drinking, and I'm like working out, making sure I worked out every day. We were cooking from home. The best part was we never, throughout that whole lockdown, ever ordered food. We cooked our own food, and we stay healthy. We walked every day, got out in the sun, and then I took your challenge of you were talking with the COVID challenge of instead of gaining 15 pounds, losing 15 pounds and gaining 5 pounds of muscle.
Yeah,
And I took that seriously and actually gained about 12, 15 pounds of muscle
nice.
and lost about 35, 40 pounds of fat because I wasn't drinking either. So,
Yeah, and it's amazing how fast it happens when you're doing that. By the way, I want to go back to something you said a little while ago. I haven't thought about this book for several years. Eat Bacon, Don't Jog.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you some interesting stuff about that book. You said it was written by a guy that's into cycling. Boy, was he into cycling and still is. He owns a company called Rivendell.com,
Yeah.
and his name is Grant Peterson. And Grant Peterson was an engineer for Giant Bicycle. Big Giant. Giant is a big bicycle brand. Think of
Okay.
Trek. They make everything from children's bikes to, pretty nice mountain bikes or whatever, right? They Giant makes everything. And then Grant is a character, right? I don't know Grant personally, but he's a character. And he started Rivendell Cycles. He makes these, they're not lightweight bikes. He makes steel lug frame bikes. And, it was kind of the gravel bike before gravel bikes. It was the go anywhere bike, and it's just bomb proof, right? Well, Grant Peterson had the same um, book agent as I do. And by the way, I
Oh,
love my book agent. Now, my book agent brought me a lot of deals on my book, Fitness Confidential. And I ended up not taking any of those deals, right? She got me with Simon and Schuster, HarperCollins, all these different companies. I didn't take any deal. I think Harlequin's in there, like some big names wanted to do Fitness Confidential, but they wanted me to change it so much. And I kept telling my agent, I'm not changing a fucking word in this book. This is the book,
yep,
right?
that's good.
And so that's what I went with, right? We didn't change a word in the book, and we put it out ourselves. And the book, she even told me, she goes, "Look, by you doing this, by you self-publishing, I won't make a dime, but I agree with you putting this book out the way you're putting it out because I think it's a great book." And sure enough, she didn't make a dime. Big time with a big, just a big agent, big time agent. I was lucky to have her. We're still friends today, but she ended up picking up another client, Grant Peterson. And doesn't his book sound a lot like mine?
Oh yeah.
Of course, his is a bathroom book is like it's like something you read in a bathroom, but it's the Reader's Digest version of my book. Now,
Exactly.
I never heard Grant Peterson ever talk about eating fat and losing weight or eating a high fat diet or any. It was nowhere near his radar. But then my book comes out, and then somehow his book comes out about 3 years later.
Oh,
Literally, I mean, can you tell the books apart? Other than
oh,
he just takes it's the same book, right? He's talking about what I'm talking about.
right, exactly. He just did it like you said, like it's a total coffee table or bathroom book.
Yeah, it's not like my book. It's not, I mean, what is it, like 50 pages long or something like that?
Yeah, it's not that big.
Yeah. And I'm like sitting there going, wait, this is like someone did like if someone did Vinny's book for dummies or the Cliff Notes of Vinny's book,
Yep.
that's exactly what this book is. And it's like, wait a minute, did he just grab my book and literally copy out that and put it? I was shocked. I was shocked when I read it.
I can see that.
Shocked, right? So yeah, that's Grant Peterson. You know, was it direct
Hey,
plagiarism? No, I can say he copied Gary Taubes or Nina Teicholz or anyone else. But we were the three people out there with books. It was me, Nina, and Gary. Doing this thing at the beginning, and all of a sudden, when someone told me Grant Peterson did a book on health and fitness, you mean the bicycle guy? Just decided. Oh, and wait, he has my agent. Sounded a little weird to me. That's all I'm
yeah.
going to say.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Good part is he led, in an indirect way, led us to you.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's good. There you go. So before we get into what happens to you next, Rick, I got to tell everybody to go try Villa Capelli olive oil. Villa Capelli olive oil is the best olive oil on the planet, bar none. I'm not saying that because they write me a check every month. I'm saying that because it's true. Villa Capelli, go to villacapelli.com. If you put in promo code Vinny, you'll get 10% off every single time. If you spend more than $125, you will get free shipping. But listen, if you spend 125 and you get the Vinny discount, that puts you below 125. So spend 140. When you take that $15, $14 off, you'll still be above 125. You'll get free shipping plus 10% off. Villa Capelli, go check them out right now. We're talking to Rick Saxinger. Am I saying it right? Saxinger.
Yeah, the way you first said it would be in German, American Saxinger.
Yeah,
People call
Saxinger.
me Sax. My nickname's Sax. So
Yeah. Sounds like a guy that played defensive line. They call him
I-
Sax.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's what he
Except in high
does.
school, I wasn't that big, Vinny.
Yeah. Like you're better off. I wish I had never played. Anyway, so you're tooling along. You gain some muscle during COVID. You lose some fat. You're clipping right along. What's your height and weight at that point?
Oh, well, I'm just under 6, so we're about the same height. I think I was still about uh, right at 200.
Okay. So
Um, oh, and a side note with Villa Capelli,
yeah,
Mel and I, we were fortunate enough to visit them in 18, so I got to see Paul.
yeah. Paul, I still can't believe he's gone. Such a
I
great
know,
guy. Such a
I
great
know,
guy.
and we love the product. So
Yeah.
just a side note on that. But the Villa Stevens, awesome, and
Yeah. Yeah. God, it's weird that he has gone, but pretty nice, right? I've never been to Puya, so I've never been to the place. Is
it
it
was
nice?
cool.
And Anna
Yeah,
loves it. Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I had horse and donkey for the first time, so and the only time probably.
Yeah. Yeah. They serve that in Italy. I can't do it. I can't do horse.
Yeah, I mean it's cool that they tag them when they're born either race, work, or food, and they
Right.
cannot change it. So
Yeah.
when you think of that way, but yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like, I tell everyone, it's we're on that food chain, right? And we have to get animal protein. And, some people's pets or another person's dinner. You
Hmm.
You can say that about a lot of things, but here we are. Um, I think we just grossed out the whole audience, but
Yeah, probably a little
yeah.
bit. Sorry about that.
So you're down. You're doing well during COVID. What goes on after COVID when we go back to the real world?
So all in all, good. I did gain a little bit of weight back, which I kind of expected. Being extreme, and I knew with my everyday living and also selling wine and having wine with dinner and all that stuff that I would gain a little bit back. But I was happy. Um, Felt good, healthy. Everything was going good. Actually, we went to Austin finally a couple of years, later. Got to meet you, and fortunate enough, I got to meet Dr. Hampton, and he became our GP, which was great.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually just went to him, asked because we're in the north suburbs of Chicago, and he's the south, and I asked him like what doctors, with the same line of thinking, and knew what he was doing and where he's at and who he was helping out. And I didn't want to take away from those uh, patients and that needed his help. And he's like, "Oh no, I'll be your doctor. Please come in." And then it's cool too because we can Zoom nowadays too, just for regular visits and that. So everything was good. I don't. Both Melodee and I. Aren't on any medication, as in for illness, as in blood pressure, cholesterol. No statins, no none of that. So I mean, I was amazed that as part of what is it, the 8% of the population now that's not on any drugs.
So something like that. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not very many.
no, and I didn't know if you want me to lead to uh, actually Dr. Hampton.
Well, let's get to August of 2023 because
Right.
that's pretty. And when I read these stories, it just drives me nuts. But go on.
So, end of August. So in the wine industry, well, what I do as a salesperson, winemakers will come in and all that stuff for a supplier, and we go visit accounts and all that. And I had a supplier come in, and she came off of she's from the airport out of Houston, and met her and was rearranging her luggage in the back of my car, and I realized I was really short of breath and I had a hard time breathing. Like I came back in the car and I had a hard time talking, and she noticed it but didn't say anything. Found out later that she told me, but so I actually called Doctor. Well, we lived on a third floor of an apartment. This is right before we moved in September, and I was like, okay, I had a back injury, so I was like taking a little time off, and I'm like, I go to Mel, I go, I've only been a couple weeks not working out. I shouldn't be this short of breath coming up the stairs. And then the next day I felt it again, so I called Dr. Hampton, and he set up a regular just chest X-ray and actually a pulmonary functional test, and it was right before Labor Day weekend. So we're coming up to a year now on this, and I was a little nervous. It looked like there's possibly with the X-ray that I might have some fluid. So he goes, "I'm going to order a CT scan," and we did our move, and we moved to a townhouse that's 3 floors. At when we did our general big move, and the movers, when they went upstairs to say, "Okay, where do you want everything?" I noticed it took me 10 minutes to get my breath back, and I started getting a little scared and concerned. And I consider myself in good shape. Um, and So when 2 days later, I went for the CT scan, and the tech, they're like, I could barely, I did it, but from the parking lot to the hospital, I was moving very, very slow.
Right.
And the tech noticed it, and like she's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm a little ahead of you. This is my normal pace." I'm like, "This is usually my normal pace." And so she did the scan and she just said, "Hey, Rick, I don't mean to scare you, but I do want the doctor to check this out before you leave. I don't want you leaving until we look at this." So when they checked it, I totally agreed. And uh, they're like, "Yeah, Rick, you have fluid in your lungs, and I can't get a hold of Dr. Hampton because it's about 5 o'clock on a Thursday." But he goes, "I recommend you going to the emergency room." And I agreed, went, and the pulmonary doctor was actually there doing something else. So he checked me out. He was confused because they were kind of thinking like maybe I got pneumonia somehow because I wasn't traveling and all that. And um, he actually, I hopefully, we already talked about horse and donkey and that, so hopefully I can get a little graphic. But he goes, "I'm going to tap in to your lung because you got fluid. I'm going to drain you. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow." And so a normal person, if they have fluid in their lungs or whatever, and it's basically, technically, it's the plural. It's not the lung itself. It's
Right.
the sac between your heart and your lungs and way your chest cavity. And so he tapped in, and a normal person would have 5 cc's. He took out 1,400 cc's,
Wow.
which I had a wine person, one of my customers joke going, "That's 2 bottles of wine," which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that's what it is. So I didn't think nothing. I mean, I did, but it wasn't like, okay, that was my issue. Why I'm not doing this? Cool, we go. But they kept me
Can
at
I
the
ask a
hospital.
dumb question? When they pulled the fluid, did you feel instantly better? Were you able to walk out of there and breathe more normal that
Well, actually, I felt better. Like that was probably the best night's sleep because the previous couple weeks I had to sleep in a chair. Like I
right?
wasn't breathing, and it's weird going back and thinking all those things. I couldn't if I couldn't grab a case of wine. I couldn't grab my wine. I could feel it, and I never felt that incapable of that in my whole life. And that was scary. But then, yeah, they took it out, and I felt better. I'm like, okay, this was the issue. Somehow I got pneumonia, and we're gonna I'll be good. Well, then I stayed overnight, and next morning the doc did an ultrasound, and I still had fluid in my lungs. And he goes, "I'm going to put a catheter in." So he put it in the rib cage, like right in the middle. Most painful thing I ever went through. Um, and instantly a bunch more fluid came out. And this is only on the right lung, by the way. It's not both.
Right.
And so they kept me for a total of 3 days, and it totaled about a gallon of fluid that they released out of me. And they were made, like I saw the nurse later on, and she's like, I don't know how you walked in here. And they just assumed that they think because I was in good condition
Right.
that I was able to do it. Most people wouldn't have. And um, so uh, got the fluid released. Doc released me and came home and felt good. I mean, my oxygen saturation, by the way, fell to the 80s.
Oh, geez. And
Yeah,
look, folks, think about this. Back in the beginning of COVID, if you were down that low, they were talking about putting you on the ventilator. The people that ended up on the ventilator, you go down 20% on your from obviously 100% on your saturation, your blood saturation of oxygen. You're pretty close to dead.
yeah. Um, so I had, before they released me, I had to hit the 90 at least for them to let me go. And I got home and I felt good. Like actually, I think it was that Monday or Tuesday. I was back to, well, with the home one that I used. I was at 97. So I'm like, okay, all good. And we were just moving in, and uh, so 3 days after I got released, then I noticed I had had I missed 4 phone calls, and it was from my lung doctor. And he was like, "You need to call me," and I called him back, and that's when he told me that the fluid came back from the lab and it's malignant,
Oof.
and that I have looks like I have stage 4 lung cancer, and I've never smoked in my life. I might have one cigarette when I was 8 or something like that, which
Yeah, I
I
don't
never
think
had.
one counts as a
Yeah,
smoker.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand it. He goes, "You're young, you're healthy, but it's 20% of lung cancer patients are non-smokers, and so don't know what triggered it or what happened." And well, Mel and I were devastated. I actually, that moment, I I was like, man, I only have a few months to live. I mean, that's how I felt. But that night, I just said, you know what? Um, uh, the world's not getting rid of me this quickly, and that somehow I wanted to be an inspiration, and if anything, before I leave this world, to inspire people. So that's what I did.
So
And
it's one thing to say it, Rick, and a lot of people would just go down into a Great Depression, when they get that kind of news, right? And but you came home and made this decree. I'm not fucking leaving yet, right? What do you do right at that moment? Like not right at that moment, but what is your game plan? You have stage 4. If it's malignant, if it's in your lymph nodes, then it's all over your body and you're dead anyway. What's the game plan? Or do you devise a game plan, or do you go to your doctor and go, "Hey, man, what up, bro? What are we doing?" How does that work?
I don't know. It's I go back on it. I really believe, and then afterwards, just talking to doctors, actually, Dr. Hampton, all that stuff. It's like it's your attitude that 50% people survive a lot longer if you have a positive attitude. And I don't know. I go, I can't, like, everything I've done in my life. Even Tony Hampton had Dr. Merrick on, and he lists all the things how you prevent cancer, and I do all those things.
Right.
And told Dr. Hampton, he's like, that's what's so crazy about cancer, and it's like unexplainable, and so I just started. I go, you know what? I don't plan on leaving. I plan on living. I think. Oh, I don't know if I told you this, Vinny, but so this was September, and um, I'm skipping a little bit, but I did get. I went to an oncologist the week later. You got to do that whole thing too. You got to get it. The what's the full body scan, and then the brain MRI to make sure it's
Yeah.
not
Make sure
spread.
it's not somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. So my situation, which makes sense when you think of the body parts and where everything is, a little went to the liver, and then L1 and L5 in the spine. Um, so um, went to the colleges. I was like, okay, what do you do? All this, and but then I go, but I'm going to get a second opinion, and he
Right.
respected that, and so we got a second opinion in Northwestern downtown, and um, and it was a month later. Like I saw the first oncologist, and I didn't get the PET scan or the brain MRI yet, and he was already recommending that I do chemo,
Right.
and I'm like, well, if I have to do it, I'll do it, but I prefer not to if I didn't have to, and so we went to. I had to wait like a month. Then went to Northwestern, and what I loved about that doctor was he just stared me in the face and said, "Why are you here?" to get my second opinion.
Yeah.
And I went, you're freaking Northwestern
Right.
and you do clinical trials. And if possible, I don't want to do chemo. And he's like, good, because you're not going to, at least for now. So, um,
So Rick, I got to jump in, man.
yeah, please.
All right. So you get that first opinion. You got stage 4 lung cancer. It's already moving about your body. It's in your liver. It's in the small of your back and your vertebrae. And you're sleeping at night knowing that you went another month letting this continue to grow and mingle about your body.
Yeah, I had a,
Kind of
that
balls
was a hard,
balls, man. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I, you know what? I think I gave you that book with that doctor on the metabolic approach.
Yeah.
And she actually said, you don't have to make a sudden opinion. At most, I mean, there is a percentage that you have to decide right away
Yeah.
what you're going to do. And yeah, it was that whole period too is the tumor was still producing the fluid. That's why why I was suffering.
Do you still have the port in your chest at this time?
No, they took it out. All's good. However, 2 weeks later, I had to go back in and they had to tap me in another quart and a half. They had to take out.
Right. So you're just
And
a fluid machine at this point.
yeah, yeah, and that was my devastation of not doing anything because of the fluid.
Right.
Um, so that happened twice before I finally. So the suggestion was their target therapy, which is taking two medicines, one which was um, experimental in 2015, became FDA approved in 2022, and where they take one gene blocker, which is mainly for skin cancer, with another gene blocker, and they found out by combining them, it will attack the BRAF gene, which is what. Oh, and that was the thing too. It's wrapped around my lung, so um, I couldn't get surgery. They would have to take out my lung.
Right.
So the plan was it would block the enzymes of it growing and hopefully it would shrink and then die and go away. But it's only been experimental. So my first oncologist knew about this and he says, "Oh, it's only good for 6 months. We'll worry about that later. Why don't we just go ahead and do the chemo?" And looking back, I'm like, "Well, give me those 6 months before chemo." I mean, you get it for sure
Yeah.
on the side effects and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And if we have to do it, we have to do it. So um, so we went ahead, and that was October. So I'm waiting. So September 13th, I got diagnosed. October 20th or 21st, I think it was 21st. I started taking the medicine, and noticed the difference within a week. That I was able to start breathing normal. Like I could go to sleep, I can do all that. And but the thing is, it's like that whole time period, I wasn't working out, um, couldn't do anything, and I was in a way because I wasn't also I wasn't drinking with being in the hospital and all that stuff. So I lost some weight and I lost a lot of muscle. I actually lost all the muscle that I gained during lockdown. And I didn't like, I looked at myself in the mirror and I felt like a really old and I was crying. I was like, I just, yeah, it was so tough. But then everything was good and I started being able to breathe. And doc says, yeah, you can try to exercise. That's the best thing. And I forgot the date, but my first workout, well, I walked 25 minutes because I couldn't even walk for 25 minutes.
Right.
And I did 5 push-ups and 5 sit-ups. And that was my first workout headed back to where I'm at now.
So where are we with the cancer overall? Is it gone? Did the gene therapy work 100%? Did you ever take chemo? Bring me into some of that.
So it's actually no chemo. Um, so the and thanks for keeping me in line because I'm all over the place. Um, but the medicine, the first scan after taking the medicine was the day after Christmas. It was 66 days, and the main tumor went from 5.6 centimeters to 2.
Wow, less than half.
Yeah, and we
More than half. That's what I meant to.
yeah 60 something 66% or something.
Yeah.
And then when you definitely put it on paper, like it's like this big to this big.
Right.
So and we talked in between, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was definitely NSNG AF, and so since then, since day after Christmas, uh, it's been stable. It's still there, but everything's been good. Saw the doc, I got scanned last week and saw the doc, and it's the first time that I felt. I mean, I felt good every time I saw him, but he was excited. But he's like, "You have it in control, and you can kind of consider it as you're in remission." But I still need to take the
What
medicine.
about your liver and your lower back, your lumbar? Is
So
it
it's still there. They do. So the liver and the lung is the target therapy, and then they do a monoclonal antibody shot for my spine. So, but everything's stable. They actually done, and they just did another one. They every 2 or 3 months they take blood for DNA and all that stuff to make sure it hasn't shed.
yeah?
And so far so good. So everything's been good.
Well, that's amazing. My mom recently, a couple, several months back, maybe a half a year now. Fluid in the lungs. All of a sudden, couldn't breathe one day. Fluid in the lungs, and she had a mass. She had, and they went and biopsied and went, oh yeah, it's cancerous. So um, they just went in and cut it. It was in a position where they can just cut it out, and they took a quarter of one of her lungs to get it out.
Wow.
Right. And the woman's a battle axe. I mean, when she went in, I went home for that because she was like, yeah, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. She's got that kind of resolve. Um, so shit, well, I need to come see you before you go. Right. So I did that. But yeah, you seem to have had it much worse than she did. And I remember they took a ton of fluid off her overnight, all of a sudden, ton of fluid on her lungs. I was like, Ma, that doesn't just happen. And again, woman never smoked a cigarette a day in her life, right? So you can't go, well, was she a smoker? No, it's just cancer does not discriminate. It just does
Nope,
not,
it does not.
right? And that's where she is, and that's where you were. So still an SNG, still very low carb.
Yep.
How does that look for you?
It's doing great. I I've been able to build back some muscle. I'm almost there. I'm doing full workouts. We were just recently in Colorado, and so if we go away, I kind of like set in my mind like, okay, how are my days? Are on my workout? Can I do self-varying exercises in the room? Do I need to go to the workout room for weights? And it hit me where I'm like, oh crap, we're going to be in Colorado. That's high altitude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, I didn't say anything to Melodee. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And that was my goal, and I was able to do it. So it's that was a huge accomplishment. Feeling, just when I started doing cardio and all that stuff, it was a huge accomplishment just because of dealing with my lung.
Yeah.
Uh, but I what's great is the thing that hurt me was the fluid. Once that stopped, I was basically able to continue doing what I'm doing, and that's what I had in my mindset. Keep doing what you did before until something happens that they say you can't. And
Yeah, look, I get it, man. A lot of people, I talk to a lot of people who get diagnoses all the time, and it's just not, they go into a tailspin. And I can't tell someone not to go into a tailspin, but people do, right? And you just have to, you know, uh, the tailspin thing is tough. And I'll get the phone call, right? You got to talk to my sister, my brother, whatever, tailspin. And it's hard to talk people out of it, but I think people like yourself, people like me, who just kind of take this pragmatic approach of, okay, this is where I am now. How do I get out of it, right? Yeah.
yep,
Does that make sense?
it totally makes sense. And I'm like, I'm not, uh, I can't change. Um, I just, and that whole thing at that night when I said that I was going to be an inspiration, and that I'm like, I just got to live my life. And it's weird, Vinny, where my joke is always, people tell me I'm an inspiration. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just, my joke is I'm just being Rick. And
Rick, let me ask you this: do you ever feel like a fraud when people say that?
yeah, a little bit.
I tell all the time, people go, "I read your book, and you inspired me in cancer and the whole thing." And it's like, I feel like a fraud. It's
Yep.
like I just told my story. I didn't think it was going to become a thing that people read when they got cancer, right?
Yep. Yep.
But there you are, because you're helping other people now, whether you want to believe it or, and it's weird because you're not trying to help other people, but you become an inspiration for other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just, you just saying that gave me goosebumps. I'm like, I totally relate.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, I was just standing here and got cancer, and I got to live. I don't know. Okay, I guess that makes me because. And do people ask you this? Is like, how's your life changed? And I was like, I'm still the same asshole I was before I had cancer. I'm
Yep.
still that guy. You don't lose being who you are with cancer. Some people go, oh, that was my wake up call. And I get it. Yeah, I was an alcoholic. I did this and I got cancer and I got myself straight. Yeah, I get that. Cancer is different for everyone. But I think guys like you and me, that we were basically on the straight and narrow before. And I don't know about you, Rick, but I remember being a little pissed going, wait a minute. I got three fucking brothers who can give a good shit about what they eat. Exercise is something that they shy away from in every way, shape, and form. They all have guts on them. And I'm the one with cancer, right?
I wasn't a little pissed, Vinny. I was a lot of pissed.
Yeah, it really, like you're sitting there going, like, like a movie, looking up at the sky going, why me? It's like, it's this feeling you get, and I'm sitting there going, all of my brothers. And finally, my younger brother ended up with colorectal cancer and, beat it. He got lucky. He's on a colostomy bag for the rest of his life, but he was a Crohn's disease guy his whole life. And those guys end up with that kind of cancer, no matter what, if they live long enough.
Yep.
So that's why I tell people, don't feel special when you get cancer. Just know that everybody gets something, right?
Well, the biggest thing was, so February, Melodee and I went on a trip that we go on this big trip every year that there's about 250 people and we know about 70%. And a lot of people were finding out, and we were getting ready for dinner and this song came on, and from recent hit from Beartooth, and it's basically I didn't just live, I was alive.
Yeah.
And I looked at Mel going, did you hear the lyrics? And she's like, yeah. And I go, that's my theme. And I always thought that I appreciated life and try to live it to the fullest. But then also when you get a little time clock on you, you realize a little bit more. And
Wait. What's the name of the song? I Was Alive by Bear.
from Beartooth.
All right, because I had another song. Tell me if this is a song. I want to hear it now. I don't know the song. Is I was sitting there going, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna probably die." The first time I had it really bad, right? So I'm probably not gonna make it out of this, and it's gonna be a funeral, and all my old classmates, guys I played football with, they're gonna go, "Oh yeah, Vinny died. What did he do?" I don't know. He went out to Hollywood. He was rolling around on the floor with celebrities. I don't know, some trainer or something. I don't know. Yeah. And that's when I said, "Damn, I got to do something. I got to really do something, right? I got to change who I am. I got to help more people because when you start thinking about what's really, a thing, what really matters in life, and you start going, oh, I need to help people, right? And yeah, that's where I am. That's
And I totally appreciate that, Vinny, because when you came, when your first incident and you decided to help people, uh, I might not have been here right now if you didn't do that, on the influence of the right way to do things, or the knowledge, the unknown knowledge that you brought out there. And I was happy that my best friend, who was a smoker, um, got a CT scan to make sure. I had a colleague, same thing, going, "Oh crap, my buddy Rick is going through this. He didn't smoke." So I was very happy that I helped out two people right there. And so my whole thing on social media is I just show, um, to appreciate life and don't live, be alive,
right.
and trying to influence that way. But then I do text people and yourself on my updates, and I didn't realize this, but I had a friend who saw my recent update and responded, and because of my posts and all that stuff, um, he had a failed suicide attempt, and he actually, because of my passion for life, is wants to live.
Wow.
And I never thought that when I wanted to um, be I can't even think of the word right now, but I never thought that it would be on that end of being helping somebody.
But it really makes, and I don't want to get into an existential conversation about this, but it really makes you start to think, why are we all here? Why are we doing
Yeah,
what we're doing? And and you never realize who's watching, right, and who's paying attention. And
exactly.
you know, and look, I don't have religion. I wish I did. The nuns beat it out of me, but I do have this weird thing. Serena always says I'm the most spiritual, non-spiritual person she's ever met. But you know, maybe you're almost dying from cancer saved your friend's life from committing suicide,
Yeah,
and that might be all you need, right?
yeah. I had another friend that said it's amazing. You look, because I like the people I'm meeting or situations. It's like a little surreal, like you just said, a higher power or whatever you want to say, cosmic. And said sometimes when we search for the miracle, we find out that we are the miracle.
Yeah, yeah. That's some heavy. We just got real heavy here, Rick. Jesus Christ, man! I try to keep these podcasts nice and light. Rick, I just try to hook up with you on Instagram. You have a private account. Hopefully, you'll let me in.
Oh yeah, of course.
But where can people find you? If you want them to find you, or you don't
Sure.
stay?
No, I'm the only Rick Saxinger in the whole wide world on Facebook, so I know that for sure.
Come on,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
In the
yeah.
whole world, there's only one Rick
Whole world,
Saxinger.
it's only one Rick Saxinger.
Wow. Well, yeah, believe it or not, there's like 10 Vinnie Tortoriches, and I'm related to all of them. That's the crazy thing. Yeah.
So,
We're
yeah.
all related, and we all know each other. They're all my, distance
Well, that's
cousins.
good.
Yeah. My great grandfather had 11 kids, and then those 11 kids had a bunch of kids. And the name, there's a few names in my family that go around, Tony or Anthony, Frank, it's basic Italian shit.
Yeah.
And Vincent, right? And a couple of them are Vincenzos or Enzos. Vincenzo becomes Enzo. Sometimes it becomes Vince. But in general, we all become Vinny at some point. And look, I didn't know my name was Vincent in first grade because because from the time I was born, since my dad was also Vincent, they had to call me something. And my
Right.
mom's
Right.
brother's name was Vincent, so they called him Vince. They called my dad Vincent, so they had to go with Vinny with me. I didn't even know my name was really Vincent until my first grade teacher pointed it out to me. Yeah. So anyway, Rick, we'll make that the final word, folks. Rick, don't go away. I'm going to play a little music. Hang
I
on
hope
because we
so.
have to wait till it uploads a little bit and all that crap. Folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner. If you haven't seen my new documentary, Dirty Keto, that's on Amazon. Go check it out. Rick, did you see it? Did you see Dirty Keto?
It's awesome. Very good.
Listen,
Recommended it.
Rick says it's awesome. Rick, did you rate it and review it?
Yes, of course.
Be like Rick, folks. You want to be a little more like Rick, but without the fluid in the lungs. So, on behalf of Rick Saxinger, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with one Mr. Tim McGraw. Yeah.